Dear Lord, give me the words. Show me the way. We have so little time. What I tell you in the next 10 minutes is wildly important. As sure as there's a nose on your face and air on this planet to breathe, it is important that you hear me. So important that I must insist upon your full, undivided attention. Your full, undivided attention for just 10 minutes. Do I have it? Just 10 minutes, starting now. Back in 2000, my company sent me to live and work in Germany. Shortly after I arrived there, I went to dinner with one of my German colleagues. And after dinner was over, he asked me what I thought of Germany and the United States. And I spent several minutes talking about the two countries and what I thought of them, pro and con, good and bad, for and against. After I finished, he leaned in across the table. We Germans, we watch your country very, very closely. You know what we did to the Jews. You know what we did to the Poles. You know what we did to our own German people who spoke against the war. You know what we did. This place, the United Nations, this place, do you know it? Do you know it? Nodded my head, of course, I knew it. This place, it cannot be here in Germany, cannot be in France, or the United Kingdom, or Chile, or China, or even Canada. There is one place, where the world knows that the people can be counted upon to fight for, and sometimes even die for, freedom, equality, and fairness. And we Germans watch your country very, very closely. Freedom, equality, fairness. Just 3 words amongst hundreds of thousands. And yet, through the desires of our hearts, they've become ideals. And through the collective effort and will of generations of us all, they became, pick the metaphor, the foundation, the pillars, the bedrock, the canvas upon which resides all that is great and good about life in a democracy. Well, let's take a moment and imagine our lives in the absence of freedom, equality, and fairness. We don't have to imagine it. We just recall the words of my German colleague. You know what we did to the Jews. You know what we did to the Poles. You know what we did to our own German people who spoke against the war. You know what we did. I worked and lived amongst the German people for almost 3 years. My father's parents were German immigrants to the United States. All good, compassionate, reasoned, and reasonable people. And yet, freedom, equality, and fairness disappeared in Germany not that long ago. Surely, promoting and protecting freedom, equality, and fairness warrants at least a few hours of effort every month. So now, many of you are wondering, maybe he's right. Maybe I should be spending at least a few hours each month. promoting and protecting freedom, equality, and fairness. But what are the tools needed to promote and protect democracy? The entire toolkit can be summed in one singular word: understanding. At the core, at the center of all of our efforts must always be an unrelenting quest for understanding. You see, all of us typically have just one or two issues that really anger and frustrate us, for whatever reason. Abortion rights, gun controls, deficit spending, economic inequality, racism, immigration. These are just some examples. And unfortunately for us in our democracy, these issues and so many more are completely submerged in oceans of propaganda. It is our emotional reaction to issues that control how we see our neighbors, our communities, our country, our world, and how we vote at the ballot box. For the few issues that really upset each of us, that really anger and frustrate us, we must make the effort to fully understand, to ferret out pro and con, good and bad, for and against. Why is the effort to fully understand so vital? Because the very worst among us use the tools of propaganda, amplified by the megaphones of our political parties, our bought and paid for media outlets, and the algorithms of the internet to manipulate us. They use the tools of propaganda to leverage our emotions, to control us, to drive our behaviors. We are being driven like cattle to slaughter. And if we're being driven somewhere, and we are, shouldn't we make damn well sure that where we're being driven is where we want to go? We need to understand those few issues most important to each of us. We must understand why we are so angry and frustrated about a particular issue. And just as importantly, we must understand why others are so angry and frustrated with our views of the same issue. Once we've taken just the few hours each month needed to push through the propaganda, to really ferret out pro and con, good and bad, for and against, our perspectives will change markedly for the better. First, almost all of us will almost certainly realize that at least one of our longest held or most deeply held beliefs, born out of ignorance, was utter and complete bullshit. Second, we'll come to appreciate that our neighbors down the street aren't really the Nazi, fascist, goose-stepping bastards or the baby-eating commie socialist pricks that the oceans of propaganda had promised. We will come to appreciate each other and that we have a huge vista of common viewpoints, interests, and goals. In fact, we will come to understand and absolutely embrace a fundamental truth. This world is not us versus them. This world is just us. This world is just us. And finally, we will come to embrace reality. The solutions to complex issues are in themselves complex. There are roughly 340 million people in this country. There are round about 8 billion people on this planet. Simply always yes or always no? Really? Seriously? What are needed to resolve complex issues are complex solutions. Sometimes yes and sometimes no, with many agreed rules on when the answer is yes or when the answer is no. Think of our rules around traffic. Speed limits, lane markings, traffic signs, parking restrictions, licensing requirements, safety standards. There are thousands of rules and regulations. Why? Because every day, millions of vehicles take to our streets going from one place to another with no prior planning or coordination whatsoever. Our traffic rules secure the blessings of free and unfettered travel for each and every one of us, each and every day, precisely because they are complex. Think of what might happen if our traffic rules were to get politicized, submerged in an ocean of propaganda. Suddenly, half the cars are blue, half the cars are red. You goose-stepping Nazi racist prick, get out of my way! You commie pinko baby-eating bastard, you ain't going nowhere. Well, by now, the 10 minutes you seated me is rapidly coming to an end. But if you're still doubting your responsibilities to yourself and the rest of us, I have a few more words I would like to share. I happen to be a veteran of the United States Navy, and as such, I swore an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But I and the rest of us veterans didn't and don't offer our lives for some words on an old parchment. We who serve understand that our Constitution and dozens of like-minded documents from around the globe were created by people like you and me, who toiled to forge admittedly imperfect frameworks that they hoped and prayed might, maybe, secure the blessings of freedom, equality, and fairness for themselves and their posterity. And it is solely for freedom, equality, and fairness, in tandem and in concert, that we offer our last full measure of devotion. So if you're still questioning your responsibilities to yourself and to the rest of us, I invite you to visit one of the dozens of national cemeteries that are scattered across our vast country. Go, damn it. Walk amongst those headstones. As far as the eye can see, in every direction, simple, unassuming monuments to people who fought for and sometimes even died for freedom, equality, and fairness. All manner of people, mind you, tall and short, thick and thin, with all manner of hair, eyes, and color of skin. And in the face of the vastness of that sacrifice, I defy you to say to yourself and to the rest of us that you simply can't be bothered to give a few hours each month to promote and protect freedom, equality, and fairness. Well, by now, the 10 minutes you seated me has surely come to an end. And so I must return you to your own thoughts. And yet, I feel compelled to ask, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? We have so little time.